We don't know whether they meant to take turns or to all go at once, but wealth and women are things to earn, not to force and take. He made a wrathful answer. Did I wish your warning or your silence? One command I laid upon you, not to speak to me, and thus ye keep it. Well then, look for now, whether ye wish me victory or defeat, long for my life or hunger for my death. Yourself shall see my vigor is not lost. Then Enid waited pale and sorrowful, and down upon him bare the bandit three, and at the midmost charging, Prince Geraint drave the long spear a cubit through his breast, and beyond, and then against his brace of comrades, each of whom had broken on him a lance that splintered like an icicle, swung from his brand a windy buffet out, once twice, to right, to left, and stunned the twain, or slew him, and dismounting like a man that skins the wild beast after slaying him, stripped from the 3 dead wolves of woman born, the 3 gay suits of armor which they wore, and let the bodies lie, but bound the suits of armor on their horses, each on each, and tied the bridle reins of all the 3 together, and said to her, drive them on before you, and she drove them through the waste. He followed nearer. Ruth began to work against his anger in him while he watched the being he loved best in all the world. With difficulty, in mild obedience, driving them on, he fain had spoken to her, and loosed in words of sudden fire the wrath and smoldered wrong that burnt him all within. But evermore it seemed an easier thing, at once without remorse to strike her dead, than to cry halt, and to her own bright face accuse her of the least immodesty. And thus, tongue-tied, it made him wroth the more, that she could speak to whom his own ear had heard, call herself false. And suffering thus he made minutes in age, but in scarce longer time than at Caerleon the full-tided Usk, before he turned to fall seaward again. Pauses did Enid keeping watch, behold, in the first shallow shade of a deep wood, before a gloom of stubborn shafted oaks, 3 other horsemen waiting, wholly armed, whereof one seen far larger than her lord, and shook her pulses, crying, look, a prize, 3 horses and 3 goodly suits of armor, and all in charge of whom a girl sat on. Nay, the second, yonder comes a knight, the third a craven, how he hangs his head. The giant answered merrily, yea, but one, wait here, and when he passes, fall upon him. And Enid pondered in her heart and said, I will abide the coming of my lord, and I will tell him all their villainy. My lord is weary with the fight before, and they will fall upon him unawares. I needs must disobey him for his good. How should I dare obey him to his harm. Needs must I speak, and though he kills me for it, I save a life dearer to me than mine. And she abode his coming, and said to him, with timid firmness, Have I leave to speak? He said, Ye take it speaking, and she spoke. There lurk 3 villains yonder in the wood, and each of them is wholly armed, and one is larger limbed than you are, and they say that they will fall upon you while ye pass. To which he flung a wrathful answer back, and if there were 100 in the wood, and every man were larger limbed than I, and all at once should sally out upon me, I swear it would not ruffle me so much as you that not obey me. Stand aside, and if I fall, cleave to the better man. And Enid stood aside to wait the event, not dare to watch the combat, only breathe short fits of prayer at every stroke of breath, and he she dreaded most bear down upon him, aimed at the helm, his lance aired, but Geraint, a little in the late encounter strained, struck through the bulky bandit's corslet home, and then brake short, and down his enemy rolled, and there lay still, as he that tells the tale saw once a great piece of promontory that had a sapling growing on it, slide from the longshore cliff, windy walls to the beach, and there lie still, yet the sapling grew. So lay the man transfixed, his craven pair of comrades making slowlier at the prince, when now they saw their bulwark fallen, stood on whom the victor, to confound them more, spurred with his terrible war cry, for as one that listens near a torrent mountain brook, all through the crash of the near cataract hears the drumming thunder of the huger fall. At distance were the soldiers wont to hear his voice in battle, and be kindled by it, and foemen scared, like that false pair who turned, flying, but overtaken, died the death themselves had wrought on many an innocent. Thereon Geraint, dismounting, picked the lance that pleased him best, and drew from those dead wolves their 3 gay suits of armor, each from each. Remember, gays and joys, and bound them on their horses, each on each, and tied the bridle reins of all the 3 together, and said to her, Drive them on before you. And she drove them through the wood. He followed nearer still. The pain she had to keep them in the wild ways of the wood. 2 sets of 3 laden with jingling arms together served a little to disedge the sharpness of that pain about her heart, and they themselves, like creatures gently born, but into bad hands fallen, and now so long, by bandits groomed, pricked their light ears, and felt her low voice firm and tender government. So through the green gloom of the wood they passed, and issuing under open heavens beheld a little town with towers upon a rock, and close beneath a meadow chum-like, chaste in the brown wild, and mowers mowing in it, and down a rocky pathway from the place there came a fair-haired youth, that in his hand bare victual for the mowers. And Geraint had ruth again on Enid, looking pale. Then moving downward to the meadow ground, he, when the fair-haired youth came by him, said, "Friend, let her eat, the damsel is so faint." "Yea, willingly," replied the youth, "and thou, my lord, eat also, though the fare is coarse, and only meat for mowers." Then set down his basket, and dismounting on the sward, they let the horses graze and ate themselves, and Enid took a little delicately, less having stomach for it than desire. To close with her lord's pleasure, but Geraint ate all the mower's victual unawares. But when he found all empty, was amazed, and boy, said he, I have eaten all, but take a horse and arms for guerdon. Choose the best. He, reddening in extremity of delight, "My lord, you overpay me 50-fold. Ye will be all the wealthier," cried the prince. "I take it as a free gift then," said the boy. "Not guerdon for myself can easily." "While your good damsel rests, return and fetch fresh victual for these mowers of our earl. For these are his, and all the field is his, and I myself am his. And I will tell him how great a man thou art. He loves to know when men of mark are in his territory, and he will have thee to his palace here, and serve thee costlier than with mowers fare." Then said Geraint, "I wish no better fare. I never ate with angrier appetite than when I left your mowers dinnerless, and into no earl's palace will I go. I know, God knows, too much of palaces, and if he want me, let him come to me, but hire us some fair chamber for the night, and stalling for the horses, and return with victual for these men, and let us know." "Yea, my kind lord," said the glad youth, and went, held his head high, and thought himself a knight. And up the rocky pathway disappeared, leading the horse, and they were left alone. But when the prince had brought his errant eyes home from the rock sideways he let them glance at Enid, where she drooped his own false doom, that shadow of mistrust should never cross betwixt them, came upon him, and he sighed. Then, with another humorous ruth, remarked the lusty mowers laboring dinnerless, and watched the sun blaze on the turning scythe, and after nodded sleepily in the heat. But she, remembering her ruined hall, and all the windy clamor of the daws about her hollow, turret, plucked the grass. There growing longest by the meadow's edge, and into many a listless annulet, now over, now beneath her marriage ring, wove and unwove it, till the boy returned, and told them of a chamber, and they went. Or after saying to her, "If ye will, call for the woman of the house," to which she answered, "Thanks, my lord." The two remained apart by all the chamber's width, and mute as two creatures, voiceless, through the fault of birth, are two wild men, supporters of a shield, painted, who stare at open space nor glance the one at other, parted by the shield. On a sudden, many a voice along the street, and heel against the pavement echoing, burst their drowse, and either started while the door, pushed from without, drave backward to the wall, and midmost of a rout of roisterers, femininely fair and dissolutely pale, her suitor in old years before Geraint entered the wild lord of the place, Lemurs. He, moving up with plaint courtliness, greeted Geraint full face, but stealthily, in the mid-warmth of welcome and grasped hand, found Enid with the corner of his eye, and knew her sitting sad and solitary, then cried Geraint for wine and goodly cheer, to feed the sudden guest, and sumptuously, according to his fashion, bade the host call in what the men soever were his friends, and feast with these in honor of their earl, and care not for the cost is mine. And wine and food were brought, and Earl Lemurs drank, till he jested with all ease, and told free tales, and took the word, and played upon it, and made it of two colors for his talk, when wine and free companions kindled him, was wont to glance and sparkle like a gem of 50 facets. Thus he moved the prince to laughter, and his comrades to applause. Then when the prince was merry, axed Lemurs, your leave, my lord, to cross the room, and speak to your good damsel there, who sits apart, and seems so lonely. My free leave, he said. Get her to speak, she doth not speak to me. Then rose Lemurs, and looking at his feet, like him who tries the bridge he fears may fail, crossed and came near, lifted adoring eyes, bowed at her side, and uttered whisperingly, Enid, the pilot star of my lone life, Enid, my early and my only love, Enid, the loss of whom hath turned me wild. What chance is this? How is it I see you here? Ye are in my power at last, are in my power. Yet fear me not. I call my own self wild, but keep a touch of sweet civility here in the heart of waste and wilderness. I thought but that your father came between. In former days you saw me favorably, and if it were so, do not keep it back. Make me a little happier, and let me know it. Owe you me nothing for a life half lost. Yea, the whole dear debt of all you are, and Enid, you and he. I see with joy you sit apart, you do not speak to him, you come with no attendants, page or maid, to serve you. Doth he love you as of old? For call it lovers' quarrels, yet I know, though men may bicker with the things they love, They would not make them laughable in all eyes, not while they loved them. And your wretched dress, a wretched insult on you, dumbly speaks your story, that this man loves you no more. Your beauty is no beauty to him now, a common chance, right well I know it, palled. For I know men, nor will you win him back. For the man's love, once gone, never returns. Well, then it was a shallow love to begin with, but here is one who loves you as of old, with more exceeding passion than of old. Good, speak the word. My followers ring him round. He sits unarmed. I hold a finger up. They understand. Nay, I do not mean blood. Nor need ye look so scared at what I say. You know, that's a strong indication. It's like, no, dude, leave me alone and save yourself. This is not safe behavior. This is when men get super jealous and may even kill the person. Particularly after I can have him killed, you know. My malice is no deeper than a moat, no stronger than a well. There is the keep. He shall not cross us more. Speak but the word, or speak it not, but bend by him that made me, the one true lover whom you ever owned. I will make use of all the power I have. Oh, pardon me, the madness of that hour when first I parted from thee moves me yet. And this, the tender sound of his own voice, and sweet self-pity are the fancy of it, made his eye moist. But Enid feared his eyes, moist as they were, wine-heated from the feast, and answered with such craft as women use, guilty or guiltless, to stave off a chance that breaks upon them perilously, and said, Earl, if you love me, as in former years, and do not practice upon me, come with morn, and snatch me from him, as by violence. Leave me tonight, I am weary to the death. Lo, at leave-taking, with his brandishing plume, brushing his instep, bowed the all-amorous earl, and the stout prince bade him a loud good night. He, moving homeward, babbled to his men how Enid never loved a man but him, nor cared a broken eggshell for her lord. But Enid, left alone with Prince Geraint, debating his command of silence given, and that she now perforce must violate it, held commune with herself, and while she held, he fell asleep, and Enid had no heart to wake him, but hung o'er him, wholly pleased to find him yet unwounded after fight, and hear him breathing low and equally. Anon she rose, and stepping lightly, heaped the pieces of his armor in one place, all to be there against a sudden need, then dozed awhile herself, but overtoiled by that day's grief and travail, evermore seemed catching at a rootless thorn, and then went slipping down horrible precipices, and strongly striking out her limbs awoke. Then thought she heard the wild earl at the door, with all his rout of random followers, sound on a dreadful trumpet summoning her, which was the red cock shouting to the light, as the grey dawn stole o'er the dewy world, and glimmered on his armor in the room. And once again she rose to look at it, but touched it unawares. Jangling, the cask fell, and he started up and stared at her. Then breaking his command of silence given, she told him all that Earl Lamors had said, except the passage that he loved her not, nor left untold the craft herself had used, but ended with apology so sweet, low spoken and of so few words, and seemed so justified by that necessity, that though he thought was it for him, she wept in Devon. He but gave a wrathful groan, saying, your sweet faces make good fellows, fools and traitors. Call the host and bid him bring charger and palfrey. So she glided out among the heavy breathings of the house, and like a household spirit at the walls, beat till she woke the sleepers, and returned, then tending her rough lord, though all unasked, in silence did him service as a squire, till issuing armed he found the host and cried, thy reckoning friend, and ere he learnt it, take 5 horses and their armors. And the host, suddenly honest, answered in amaze, my lord, I scarce have spent the worth of one. Ye will be all the wealthier, said the prince. Then to Enid forward, and today I charge you, Enid, more especially, what thing soever ye may hear or see or fancy, though I count it of small use to charge you, that ye speak not, but obey. And Enid answered, yea, my lord, I know your wish, and would obey. But riding first, I hear the violent threats. You do not hear. I see the danger, which you cannot see. Then not to give you warning, that seems hard, almost beyond me, yet I would obey. Yea, so, said he, do it. Be not too wise, seeing that ye are wedded to a man, not all mismated with a yawning clown, but one with arms to guard his head and yours, with eyes to find you out, however far, and ears to hear you, even in his dreams. With that he turned and looked as keenly at her, as careful robins eye the delver's toil, and that within her, which a wanton fool, or hastier judger, would have called her guilt, made her cheek burn and either eyelid fall. And Geraint looked, and was not satisfied. Then forward by a way, which beaten broad, led from the territory of false Lamors to the waste earldom of another earl, Durham, whom his shaking vassals called the Bull, went Enid with her sullen follower on. Once she looked back, and when she saw him ride, more near by many, a rude than yestermorn, it well nigh made her cheerful, till Geraint, waving an angry hand, as who should say, ye watch me, saddened all her heart again. But while the sun yet beat a dewy blade, the sound of many a heavily galloping hoof smote on her ear, and turning round she saw dust and the points of lances bicker in it. Then, not to disobey her lord's behest, and yet to give him warning, for he rode, as if he heard not. Moving back, she held her finger up and pointed to the dust, at which the warrior in his obstinacy, because she kept the letter of his word, was in a manner pleased, and turning stood. In the moment after, wild Lamors, borne on a black horse, like a thundercloud, whose skirts are loosened by the breaking storm, half ridden off with by the thing he rode, and all in passion uttering a dry shriek, dashed down on Geraint, who closed with him and bore down by the length of lance and arm beyond. the crupper, and so left him stunned or dead, and overthrew the next that followed him, and blindly rushed on all the rout behind. But at the flash and motion of the man, they vanished panic-stricken, like shoal of darting fish that on a summer morn, adown the crystal dikes at Camelot, come slipping o'er their shadows on the sand. But if a man who stands upon the brink, but left a shining hand against the sun, there is not left the twinkle of a fin betwixt the cressy islets white in flower. So scared but at the motion of the man, fled all the boon companions of the Earl, and left him lying in the public way. So vanish friendships only made in wine. Then like a stormy sunlight smiled Geraint, who saw the chargers of the two that fell start from their fallen lords and wildly fly, mixed with the flyers, horse and man. He said, all of one mind and all right honest friends, not a hoof left, and I methinks till now was honest paid with horses and with arms. I cannot steal or plunder, no, nor beg, and so, what say ye? Shall we strip him there, your lover? Has your palfrey heart enough to bear his armor? Shall we fast or dine? No. Then do thou, being right honest, pray that we may meet the horsemen of Earl Durham. I, too, would still be honest. Thus he said, and sadly gazing on her bridle reins, and answering not one word, she led the way. And, not grave goods with people. It's important, particularly in war, to get that armor that the other has.